let's jump right in today with something of a financial puzzle, really.
Yeah, it's one that a lot of people grapple with, I think.
Exactly. Why do some incredibly smart, highly educated people, doctors, lawyers, academics with tenure, why do they often seem to struggle financially, like living paycheck to paycheck, never quite getting ahead?
While at the same time, you see others, maybe people who didn't even finish formal schooling, building substantial wealth, like real financial independence.
It's a paradox, right? And
hmm
society often just chalks it up to luck or maybe being in the right place at the right time.
It suggests the answer isn't really about what degree you have or even where you work. It's more about the fundamental rules you follow about money.
And that brings us to Robert Kiyosaki and his huge bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
A book that really shook things up back in '97. It presented a very different way of looking at wealth.
Yeah, a pretty radical claim, actually, that real financial success isn't found down traditional path, job security, steady paycheck, saving diligently.
No, Kiyosaki argues it's a kind of shortcut, achieved through what he calls financial intelligence, and, crucially, through acquiring assets.
So our mission today is really to unpack that central idea. The rich don't work for money, they make money work for them. That basically told people to tear up the old financial rule book.
And the book makes a powerful case that the poor and middle class, well, they just weren't taught the right lessons about money. They received advice geared towards being good employees, not towards building independence.
They learned about working for money, not mastering it. They focused on paycheck security instead of financial freedom through ownership.
Exactly. The lessons focused on getting a job within a system, not on building or owning the system itself.
So the big question we want to explore and hopefully help you figure out is, what are those key lessons that maybe most of us missed? And more importantly, how can you adopt that rich mindset that Kiyosaki talks about?
Because this really is positioned as a life-changing shift. It's not about your salary size.
No, it's about your mindset, how you define assets, and maybe having the courage to step off that well-worn path, that rat race.
It all starts with this powerful contrast he sets up right at the beginning. Two fathers, two completely different philosophies.
Let's get into that, the tale of two fathers.
Right, so Kiyosaki uses his own life experience. He frames his whole argument around these two central figures: his biological father, the poor dad, and his best friend's father, the rich dad.
And it's such an effective way to show these two opposing financial worldviews side by side, isn't it? It immediately makes you think about your own beliefs about money.
Absolutely. It forces you to confront them.
So let's start with the poor dad. This was his actual father. And by conventional standards, he was a picture of success.
Oh, yeah. Highly educated, PhD, good government job, respected professionally. He did everything right according to the traditional playbook.
Study hard, get good grades, find a secure job with benefits.
The whole 9 yards. But, and this is the kicker, despite all that education and hard work, the book paints him as someone who was always struggling financially, perpetually worried about money.
His whole world revolved around job security, didn't it?
Completely. He truly believed that formal education and a stable job were the only way. His advice was basically that mantra we've all heard: go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job.
And it sounds so sensible, so safe. It's the path society encourages.
It is. It's the path of least resistance, socially speaking.
Okay, now pivot to the rich dad, his best friend's father.
Right.
And he was the polar opposite.
Right. A high school dropout, apparently.
Yeah.
None of the fancy degrees or academic credentials. But he became this incredibly wealthy entrepreneur.
What was his focus?
Financial education. Not formal schooling, but practical financial literacy. Understanding things like how to read financial statements, how to use debt strategically, how to build business systems, how to manage risk.
So he saw traditional education differently.
He saw it as training to be a good employee, someone who works within a system. He didn't see it as training to be an owner, an investor, someone who builds the system.
And that's where the clash of lessons really hits home. Poor dad's lesson. Work for your money. Chase the next paycheck. Climb the corporate ladder. Your salary is your security.
Whereas Rich Dad's lesson was, master money. Don't be its servant. Your time is your most valuable finite asset. So the goal isn't just to earn more by working more hours.
It's to build things that earn money for you.
Exactly. Acquire assets, build systems that generate income automatically, whether you're physically working or not. That frees up your time. That's the core mindset shift, making money work for you.
And this difference leads straight to one of Kiyosaki's most controversial points, the one that really flies in the face of conventional wisdom.
Which is,
That job security. It's actually a trap.
It sounds crazy to many people, but yeah, that's a central argument. Why a trap? Because that focus on a secure job keeps you fundamentally dependent.
Dependent on that single employer, right? On market forces in that one industry, on whether your boss likes you that week.
Precisely. Your entire financial life, your mortgage, your car payment, feeding your family, it all hangs by that single thread of the paycheck. You're completely reliant.
And that reliance is the opposite of freedom.
It is. You're stuck in what he famously called the rat race.
Explain that a bit more, the rat race loop.
Well, you work hard to earn money. Then you spend that money, often on liabilities like a bigger house or a nicer car, maybe because you feel you deserve it for working so hard. But those liabilities create bigger bills.
Which means you have to work even harder at that same job just to pay for them.
Exactly. It's a cycle. Get a raise, increase your spending on liabilities, need the next raise even more. You're running faster and faster on the hamster wheel, but not actually getting anywhere in terms of building real wealth or independence.
So freedom, in this view, isn't about the size of the paycheck.
No, it's about independence. It's about having income sources that don't require you to trade your time directly for money. It's about owning the income-generating engine, not just being a cog in someone else's machine.
It's about building that infrastructure, as you said, owning the game board, not just playing on it.
And that takes a different mindset. And Kiyosaki would argue it takes courage. The courage to maybe reject that societal pressure towards the safe job.
Okay, so if the mindset is the first piece, moving from employee to owner, thinking, what's the practical difference? How do the rich actually operate differently with their money?
Now we get to the real nuts and bolts. It comes down to where they direct their cash flow. It's about understanding one crucial distinction.
This feels like the heart of the practical advice, doesn't it? The difference between an asset and a liability.
Absolutely. If you only take one thing away from this deep dive, this should probably be it. Kiyosaki argues that understanding this difference is the key that unlocks the door to wealth.
And he defines them very simply, cutting through all the usual financial jargon.
He does. Forget complex accounting rules for a second.
Yeah.
In the rich dad philosophy, it's incredibly straightforward. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket, period.
Puts money in? Okay.
And a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket, consistently.
Takes money out. Simple enough.
Simple but profound. Because the core insight is this: the rich focus their energy and money on acquiring assets, things that generate income.
While the poor and middle class.
They tend to acquire liabilities, but here's the critical part.
Mm-hmm.
They often think they are buying assets.
Okay, let's unpack that confusion, because
Yeah.
that's huge. The classic example is your own home, right? People always say, my house is my biggest asset.
It's what we're told. It shows up on your net worth statement as a big positive number. But using Kiyosaki's cash flow definition, think about it. Does your primary residence put money in your pocket each month?
Well, no, usually the opposite. There's the mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, utilities, repairs, maintenance. It costs money every single month.
Exactly. So by that simple definition, your primary home, while potentially appreciating in value over the long term, is functioning as a liability on a month-to-month cash flow basis. It drains money from you. It requires you to keep earning that paycheck to feed it.
Okay, so what would be a real estate asset then in this model?
A rental property. Say you buy a duplex. You live in one side, rent out the other. If the rent you collect covers the mortgage, taxes, insurance, upkeep, and leaves you with extra cash flow each month.
Then that property is putting money in your pocket.
Correct. That is an asset. It's generating income independent of your job.
This also connects to how rich dad viewed debt, right? Poor dad said avoid debt like the plague.
Yes. Poor dad saw all debt as bad. Rich dad understood the difference between bad debt and good debt.
Bad debt being...
Debt used to buy liabilities, like financing that fancy new car that loses value the second you drive it off the lot and cost you a fortune in payments, insurance, and gas. It just sucks money out. Or credit card debt for consumer goods.
And good debt.
Debt used strategically to acquire income-producing assets. Yeah. Taking out a mortgage to buy that rental property we just talked about, if the rent covers the debt service and puts money in your pocket, that's good debt. The asset pays for the debt. You're using leverage.
Okay, this makes sense. It helps explain the liability disguise. You mentioned how people buy things they think are assets or rewards, but which actually dig them deeper into the rat race.
It's a huge trap. Think about what typically happens when someone gets a raise or a bonus.
Yeah.
What's the first instinct for many people?
Upgrade. Bigger house, nicer car, more expensive vacations, designer clothes.
Exactly, lifestyle inflation. But each of those things, the bigger mortgage, the higher car payment, the bigger insurance premiums, the maintenance on the fancy stuff, they all increase your monthly expenses. They are liabilities.
They don't generate income, they just demand more income to sustain them.
Right. So you get the raise, but your expenses rise to meet or even exceed it. You're working harder, earning more, but you're not actually getting wealthier in terms of building income streams. You're just funding a more expensive lifestyle based entirely on that job.
It creates this illusion of wealth. People might look rich because they have expensive things.
High-value liabilities, exactly. But their underlying financial structure is often incredibly fragile. Their income statement is stressed, constantly feeding the liability column on their balance sheet.
And if that job disappears?
The whole house of cards can collapse because it was built on the shaky foundation of a salary, not on the solid rock of income-producing assets.
So let's flip it. If we want to build that solid foundation, what does the asset blueprint look like? According to Kiyosaki, what should people actually be buying?
He emphasizes things that can generate income passively, or at least without requiring your constant direct labor. The book highlights 4 main categories.
Okay, what are they?
First, real estate, specifically income-producing properties, like rentals, commercial buildings. Understanding things like leverage, cash flow, and even tax advantages like depreciation is key here.
Depreciation. That's a big one accountants talk about. How does that help?
Well, it's a non-cash expense the tax system allows you to deduct, reflecting the theoretical wearing out of the building. So it can shelter some of the actual cash income your property generates from taxes, boosting your real return. It's a tool available to investors that employees usually don't get.
Got it. Okay, number 2.
Stocks. But not just speculating on price increases. The focus here is more on dividend-paying stocks, companies that regularly share their profits with shareholders.
So you get an actual income stream, money deposited into your account.
Exactly. You're an owner receiving your share of the profits, not just betting on market sentiment.
Makes sense. Third.
Businesses. Specifically businesses that you own but don't necessarily have to run day to day. Systems you build that can operate without you being there all the time. Think franchises or businesses with strong management teams in place.
So owning the system, not being the system.
That's the recurring theme. And the 4th category is intellectual property.
Like patents, copyrights, trademarks.
Yes, things like books, music royalties, software licenses, patents on inventions. These can generate ongoing income, sometimes for years or decades, from an initial creative or inventive effort. They are pure assets once established.
So real estate, stocks, especially dividends, businesses, systems, and intellectual property, all things that can put money in your pocket.
Correct. And acquiring these requires shifting your focus, your money, and developing a certain level of discipline.
Right, because just knowing the difference between assets and liabilities isn't enough, is it? You have to actually do something with that knowledge. Kiyosaki really emphasizes discipline.
Oh, absolutely. He's very clear that building wealth isn't about luck or getting one big break. It's about consistent, disciplined financial habits. It starts with knowing your numbers.
Cold.
Meaning you have to meticulously track your cash flow. You need to know, like, to the dollar, where your money is coming from and, more importantly, where it's going.
That sounds tedious, like hardcore budgeting.
It can feel that way initially, maybe.
Yeah.
But Kiyosaki argues most people just operate on guesses and wishful thinking when it comes to their finances. They think they know where their money goes, but they don't really. And that lack of clarity is financially dangerous.
Why is that precise tracking so vital beyond just seeing if you overspent on coffee?
Because it allows you to truly understand your financial picture through the lens of those 2 key financial statements he talks about, the income statement and the balance sheet.
Okay, refresh us quickly. Income statement is.
Income and expenses out over a period of time, like your monthly budget, essentially.
And balance sheet.
A snapshot of what you own, assets, and what you owe, liabilities, at a specific point in time. Kiyosaki illustrates that the typical middle-class pattern is income comes in, salary, on the income statement, and immediately flows out to cover expenses and pay for liabilities listed on their balance sheet, mortgage, car loan, credit cards. There's often very little left over directed towards the asset column.
Whereas the rich.
The pattern is different. Income comes in often from multiple sources, including assets, and a significant portion is immediately directed to acquire more assets on the balance sheet. Those new assets then generate even more income, which shows up on the income statement, allowing them to buy still more assets. It's a reinforcing cycle of growth.
So the discipline isn't just about not spending, it's about prioritizing asset acquisition.
Exactly. It's the pay yourself first principle, but redefined. Paying yourself doesn't mean putting money aside for a vacation or into a savings account with near zero interest. It means systematically funding your asset column first, before the bills get paid, before the discretionary spending happens.
That takes serious commitment.
It does. And that detailed tracking enables the next step: planning and projecting. When you consider buying a potential asset, say a small rental property, you need the discipline to run the numbers. What's the realistic income? What are all the expenses? What's the potential cash flow? When will it pay for itself? How does it fit into your overall plan?
You can't just hope it works out.
No. Hope is not a strategy here. This systematic approach, this constant focus on building income streams, that's the core of the entrepreneurial mindset he champions.
Which is about more than just starting a company, right?
Much more. It's about building systems, whether that's a business, a portfolio of stocks, a collection of rental properties, or licensed IP systems that generate income passively. That's the holy grail here: passive income.
Income you earn while you sleep, essentially.
That's the idea. Because if your passive income from your assets eventually exceeds your monthly living expenses.
Then you're financially free. You don't need the job anymore.
Exactly. Your assets are paying your way. That's the finish line of the rat race. And reaching it usually requires building multiple income streams.
Why multiple? Isn't one good rental property enough?
It's about diversification and resilience. Relying on a single income source, especially a job you don't control, is incredibly risky. What if you get laid off? What if that industry tanks?
You're vulnerable.
Totally.
Yeah.
But if you have income from rentals, dividends, maybe a small side business, if one stream falters, the others can keep you afloat. Plus, multiple streams create velocity, speed. The profits from one asset can be used to acquire the next asset faster. Then the profits from two assets buy the third one even faster. It's about compounding growth, reinvesting profits systematically. This requires patience and long-term thinking.
It's the opposite of that instant gratification you get from buying a liability like a new gadget.
Absolutely. Building assets is often slow and unglamorous at first. It takes discipline to delay gratification.
You know, this idea of breaking from the conventional path, having the courage to build your own system. There's a great story about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book itself that illustrates this perfectly.
Oh yeah, the publishing story. It's classic Rich Dad philosophy in action.
Tell us about it.
Well, when Kiyosaki first wrote the book, he took it to major publishers. And apparently they all rejected it.
Really? This mega bestseller. Why?
The message was too unconventional. It went against the grain of traditional financial advice. You know, the stuff about saving, getting a good job, relying on financial advisors. The establishment didn't like it. The gatekeepers rejected his blueprint for unconventional wealth building.
So what did he do? Give up? Follow their advice?
Nope. He took the rich dad path, the entrepreneurial path. He decided to self-publish. He built his own system to get his message out. He treated the book itself as an intellectual property asset that he controlled.
He essentially practiced what he preached.
Exactly. And look what happened. The book took off. Word of mouth exploded. It became this massive global phenomenon. 40 million copies, 50-plus languages. It completely bypassed the traditional gatekeepers.
It's a powerful example of having the courage to trust your own system, your own vision, even when the conventional path says no.
It really is. It underscores that building wealth often requires that willingness to step outside the norm, to take calculated risks based on your own financial education.
And that brings us back to education, doesn't it? Because ultimately, the difference between the poor dad's struggles and the rich dad's success wasn't just about money. It was about knowledge.
Specifically, financial knowledge. This is maybe Kiyosaki's sharpest critique, aimed squarely at the traditional education system.
What's the core criticism?
That schools are incredibly effective at teaching people how to work for money. They produce great employees, technicians, managers, people skilled at performing tasks within a pre-existing system.
But they fail to teach people how money actually works.
Precisely. They don't teach the skills needed to build, own, and manage the systems themselves. They prepare you to be a cog, not the machine builder.
So what specific skills are missing from that traditional curriculum, according to this philosophy?
Beyond just the basics of accounting or reading a financial statement, which are often skipped too, Rich Dad emphasized skills like selling.
Selling? Why is that so important?
Because everything in business and investing involves selling. Selling a product, selling an idea, selling yourself, negotiating deals. It's a fundamental skill for creating value and opportunity. Also, skills in investing, understanding markets, risk management.
And leadership, right? Managing people, building teams.
Yes. These practical, real-world skills, Rich Dad argued, were far more valuable for building wealth than specialized academic knowledge alone. Poor Dad valued academic credentials and specialization, which often made him a valuable employee.
But maybe also more vulnerable if that specific specialty wasn't needed anymore?
That's the risk. Rich Dad valued broader, practical financial intelligence that allowed him to see opportunities across different areas and build systems that employed specialists.
So for someone listening now, what's the actionable takeaway? Go back to school for an MBA.
Not necessarily. The key takeaway is the need to invest in your own financial education continuously. But that doesn't automatically mean formal degrees. It means actively seeking out knowledge yourself. Reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and others on investing, business, negotiation, finding mentors, people who have successfully done what you want to do, attending seminars or workshops, and crucially, learning through experience.
Getting out there and actually doing something, even small, making mistakes and learning from them.
Yes, Rich Dad called failures learning opportunities. Expensive tuition sometimes, but invaluable lessons. But perhaps the most important investment of all is in your mindset.
Shifting how you think about money and opportunity.
Exactly. The book suggests that people who build wealth tend to think in terms of opportunities, even in downturns. When the market panics, they ask, what's on sale? Where is the undervalued asset?
Well, most people are thinking, how do I protect what I have? How do I avoid loss?
Right. It's a fundamental difference in perspective. Seeing potential where others see risk. That mental framework, that ability to think critically and act counterintuitively is arguably the most powerful asset you can cultivate.
But let's be real. Investing, starting a business, it involves risk. People are terrified of losing their hard-earned money. That fear is paralyzing.
It absolutely is, and Kiyosaki acknowledges that fear directly.
Yeah.
It's probably the single biggest barrier keeping people trapped in the safety of a job they might even hate.
So how does the Rich Dad philosophy deal with that fear of loss? Does it just say be fearless?
Not quite be fearless, but maybe understand and manage fear. The contrast is stark. The Poor Dad mindset fears loss so much that it avoids any meaningful risk, settling for tiny returns in savings accounts, or just hoarding cash, which actually loses value to inflation over time. Certainty is prioritized over growth.
Okay, and the Rich Dad approach.
The Rich Dad approach understands risk is inherent in any potential for significant reward. But instead of avoiding risk, they focus on managing it.
How?
Through education, knowing what you're investing in. Through due diligence, doing your homework. Through starting small, maybe. Through diversification. And by understanding that failure isn't final, it's feedback. You learn, adjust, and try again, smarter. They don't eliminate risk, they mitigate it through intelligence and preparation.
So it's not about reckless gambling, it's about calculated, informed risk-taking.
Precisely. And this brings us back full circle to courage. Escaping the rat race, building assets, achieving financial freedom, it requires the courage to challenge conventional wisdom.
The courage to maybe look foolish to your friends and family when you don't buy the big house right away, but instead buy a small rental unit.
Yes. The courage to potentially fail and learn. The courage to trust your financial education over societal norms that push you towards lifelong employment.
It's the courage to step off that hamster wheel and start building your own path, even if it looks different.
That decision, fueled by financial intelligence and courage, is what ultimately separates the employee mindset from the owner mindset, according to this philosophy. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground, really digging into the core ideas of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, it's a powerful framework. If we had to synthesize the main message, it really comes down to this. Your financial future isn't predetermined by how much you earn. It's shaped by your mindset.
Your mindset, how you define assets versus liabilities, and whether you have the courage and discipline to act on that knowledge.
Wealth isn't just about a big paycheck. It's about building an infrastructure, acquiring those assets that put money in your pocket, independent of your direct labor. Mastering cash flow is key.
And it requires that courage we talked about to maybe reject the comfortable conventional path and the discipline to consistently prioritize building your asset column.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think it really demands some serious introspection. Start applying that simple asset liability definition to your own life.
Critically examine your spending. Question those societal definitions of success and security. Is that expensive car truly a sign of wealth, or is it a liability tying you tighter to your job? Is the big house an asset or a cash drain?
It requires constant critical thinking, challenging the default narrative that says your main financial goal should be working harder for your money.
Instead, the focus shifts to using your intelligence, your discipline, your courage to make your money start working hard for you.
Building those systems, acquiring those assets, creating that independence. Because relying solely on a job means you're always dependent. Financial intelligence is the pathway to independence.
Which leads us perfectly into that final provocative thought, straight from Kiyosaki's core teaching. Ask yourself this question honestly.
If your main source of income, probably your job disappeared tomorrow, completely vanished.
How long could you maintain your current lifestyle based only on the income generated by your assets?
Well,
A month? 6 months? A year? Longer?
Kiyosaki suggests that duration, that number of months or years, is the true measure of your financial freedom. Not your salary, not your job title, not the fancy car. How long can your assets sustain you?
That number, he argues, is the one you should be relentlessly focused on increasing. That's the real score in the game of financial independence, something to think about.